Welcome to Teaching Truth. There's nothing like a glass of refreshing cold water to quench your thirst, and nothing like a glass of cold water to bring that much needed refreshment on a hot summer's day. The Israelites were certainly in need of refreshment as they travelled across the desert. Their basic requirement was going to be water. Water is an elemental way of life. And in our reflections yesterday, we were thinking about their travelling from the Red Sea to Marah. Marah means that place of bitterness. And in our reflections today, we want to think about their moaning, which they undertook when they arrived at Marah. And we're going to read from Exodus chapter 15 to discover why they moaned when they arrived at Marah. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That is why the place is called Marah. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. Because the Israelites, when they got to Marah, tasted the water, and discovered it was bitter, they grumbled against Moses. Now put yourself in the shoes of one of the Israelites. If you had been walking across the desert for 3 days and you had come to this place where you saw an oasis, saw that there was water available, you would think, "Oh, thank goodness we're coming to get water. We can go and get a drink from here and lie down and find refreshment." And then all of a sudden, when you go to drink the water, you find it's bitter. Well, you could well be forgiven for grumbling against Moses. "What are we to drink, Moses? Why have you brought us here? You've been leading us on a merry dance for 3 days, and here we are, having walked through the desert. We've come to this place where we thought there was water. We've drunk the water, and it's absolutely bitter. We cannot drink this. What are we to do?" You could be forgiven for having that sense of concern and for saying that if you were one of the Israelites. Moses had to carry many burdens as a leader. And one of the burdens that any leader today has to carry is that of people grumbling. Any leader will always deal with grumbling people. And in the various leadership roles that I've been privileged to have over the years by way of serving others, the reality is that there have always been grumbling people who are never happy with where you lead them, people who want more than what you're able to offer them. So what did Moses do? Well, Moses, because he was a spiritual man, Moses didn't, at least it's not recorded that he responded to the people. He didn't have an argument with the people in the middle of the desert as they came to this place called Marah. No, Moses didn't criticize the people, but Moses cried out to the Lord. And as a leader, we ought never to criticize those whom we lead. But as a leader, we should do what Moses did, cry out to the Lord. And God was faithful. God had been faithful to Moses and to the Israelites, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw that piece of wood into the water, and the water became sweet. The people were grumbling, the people were moaning, because the water which they had tasted was bitter. And so Moses, being the spiritual man he was, went to God, as it were, with the problem. And therein lies a lesson for us. That if we are a leader in whatever situation that might be, in whatever role or function that might be, when people criticize, when people grumble, let's do what Moses did and go to God with the problem. Moses could well have said to the people, look, you're a bunch of moaning minis, to quote Mrs. Thatcher. Now stop it. Moses didn't do that. Moses went to God with the problem, because Moses was a man who had faith in God, who had trust in God, and in a sense knew God's bigger plan through all of this. And perhaps God has brought you to a Marah situation. Perhaps you are drinking the wrong things, and I don't mean in an alcoholic sense. Perhaps you're looking to have your thirst quenched by looking in the wrong places, in the wrong areas, and what you are tasting is in fact spiritually bitter to you. And what God would want you to do is to actually taste that which is much sweeter. God sometimes brings us to a Marah, to taste that which is bitter, in order that we can then turn, and do then turn, to taste that which is sweeter. Has God brought you to Marah in your life today? Do you need your thirst quenched? Are you drinking that water that is, bitter? Is your life not being satisfied? You're looking perhaps in the wrong places to have your spiritual thirst quenched. Jesus said, I am the living water. He who comes to me will never thirst. Perhaps today you need to come, if you're in that Marah place, to Jesus and to drink of him, the living water, because Jesus offers that living water freely to you.